Well, first of all, my name is Kirsten Lombard, and I am the organizer of the Wisconsin 912 Project, which is a Dane County-based grassroots group. We're constitutionally oriented and quite strict constitutionalists, so we take things quite seriously. Our group has been around for about 3 years. The 912, for those of you who are not familiar with 912 groups, comes out of the Glenn Beck show. About 3 years ago, Glenn Beck started calling for people to meet and talk about the Constitution just in the comforts of their own living room or in a local restaurant or wherever it happened to be. And out of that sprang up all of these 912 groups. And the idea behind 912 was that we wanted to be the people of the day after 9/11. On 9/11, people were frightened, they were discombobulated, they were woebegone. But on the day after 9/11, they rallied together for common purpose in order to achieve something important. And that is what the 912 initially stands for. And then there were 9 principles and 12 values that were developed to go along with that. Things that I'm sure most of the people in this room would all understand and appreciate. Things like, I am the master of my home, not the government. I decide what goes on in my home, not the government. Things like that. With that, we set about trying to figure out what we were going to be about in our group, because other than those 9 principles and 12 values, there really isn't any unifying force for 912 groups that exist across the nation. And our group determined within about a year, took us a little while of foundering around, but we decided that we were really perfectly situated in Madison to focus on state issues because we have the Capitol building right there, and it makes it very easy for us in a way that it's not easy for other groups to go and talk to legislators at the Capitol, to work on policy issues, to talk to legislators about policy ideas, work with them on developing policy language, things like that. And so that is where we have really focused. And out of that, we have worked on things like healthcare here in the state of Wisconsin, driving the desire to not have Obamacare established here. We also have partnered with other groups on concealed carry initiatives and a number of other constitutionally related initiatives in the state. Right now, over the coming year, we're going to be focusing almost exclusively on Agenda 21. We feel that this is so important, that it's such a many-headed hydra, and that if we do not address it, if we do not tackle it as a group, and if we do not network with the other groups that we work with to make our legislators and the public aware of this issue and the many initiatives that fall underneath it, we are literally set to lose our liberty almost overnight in the grand scheme of things, because so many pieces have now been put into place. So with that, I'm going to launch into my green tier presentation a little bit. Out of curiosity, I'm sure most of you in this room probably are familiar with Agenda 21. Is there anyone in the room who is not familiar with Agenda 21? Okay, let me just give a quick synopsis then of Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is the United Nations agenda for the 21st century. And it is a very comprehensive plan that was developed by primarily non-governmental organizations and then adopted at the UN Earth Summit in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. And we just, the UN just celebrated Rio Plus 20. They just had a huge conference down in Rio again that ended just a couple of weeks ago. That plan, again, it's a 40-chapter plan which covers just about every aspect of human life that the UN wants to make sure that they are touching and affecting. And it involves a total transformation of the way that we live. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the chart that they use to describe a lot of what they want to achieve and the way they look at it, or they want to communicate about it, and then what that actually translates into for you and I. That's part of what this presentation is going to help you understand if you don't already. As a result of Agenda 21, there were a number of things that began to happen around the world. Different governments around the world went back to their home countries and started working to implement this. And in the United States, It was largely fostered by something called the President's Council on Sustainable Development, which was formed by President Clinton. Now, let me be very clear. This is an equal opportunity disease because it was actually President Bush Sr. who signed Agenda 21 down in Rio, who adopted that plan, and then it was President Clinton who began to really push it forward in a major way in the United States. Here in Wisconsin, we've had our own champions of Agenda 21, which we will talk about a little bit in a moment. So what is green tier, and why should we care about it? First of all, let me tell you a little story about something that's going on in Madison right now that will help you to understand the principles that underlie green tier and where these policies, the policies that end up having to be implemented in order to advance all of these Agenda 21 initiatives, where they eventually lead. Recently, Madison, the city of Madison, where I live, decided that it was going to start a smart metering program for water. And in Madison, we have a conservation plan. In Madison, we don't actually need green tier because we're a little entity unto ourselves when it comes to environmental causes. They know they don't need to sign us up for this because we're going to do it on our own. However, it's all the same kinds of principles. So I went to this meeting at the Water Utility Board the other day that was going to talk about water metering and the public outcry that is now starting to happen about it, even among people on the left in Madison. They're not happy with this water metering plan for a number of different reasons. And I got there and the room was quite full. And I thought that most of the people were there about the smart metering. And there were a number of people there about the smart metering, but they were also there to talk about something else that was going on, kind of coexisting with this smart metering. They are shutting down private wells in the city of Madison. They just passed an ordinance to tell about, I think, at least 100 private well owners that they are no longer able to use their private wells and that they're going to have to connect to the city water system. Now, it takes a lot of money to dig a well. It takes a lot of money to fill one in. There was a gentleman there almost crying in front of the Water Utility Board because he didn't know how he was going to afford even to fill this well in, saying he would have to approach his 90-some-year-old father in order to borrow the money, which was going to be very embarrassing for him. And this well situation has been propagated on a lie. The city council passed an ordinance saying that these wells had to be shut down on the lie that these would risk contaminating the city water system. In fact, that is not true, not at all true. Most of these wells are perfectly fine. They've been regularly tested as mandated by law, and they have come up clean repeatedly. Moreover, some of these wells are in places where they couldn't possibly contaminate the city water system. So really, this is, as far as we can tell, an effort to control resources. And I can add some additional information to that by telling you that in Madison we have a water conservation program. As I said, right now the city of Madison uses about 30 million gallons of water a day. The conservation plan calls to have us down to 24 million gallons of water a day by 2020. That's fully a fifth less water usage. And that does not take into consideration at all the fact that the population in Madison is going to grow, especially if the environmentalists have their way, because they're working to push us all into these high-density living areas. So really, this is where these kinds of policies go that I'm going to talk about with green tier. So with green tier, you actually have two different sides of the program. There's one that's geared towards business, and here you see that there are three different levels. There's a tier 1, a tier 2, and then you can also engage in charters with other businesses or, for example, I'm going to talk about one a little bit that the Dairy Business Association has formed. So there are different ways to go about this. Tier 1 is the entry level for business. So that's where you come into the green tier program as a business, and then after a little while, after you've gotten yourself up to certain standards, then you're eligible to enter Tier 2 of the program, which is much more strict. There are these little perks that you are supposedly given to join the program, one of which is some regulatory flexibility, reduced inspection frequency, although that may actually only be temporary. I need to go back and check the state statutes on that, but I think that may be actually only temporary when you first join the program. And then you also, as a Tier 2 participant, you contract regulatory incentives with the DNR. So you are getting particular perks that are unique to your business, that are valuable to you in exchange for being in this program and participating in these environmental initiatives. You also get the use of a Green Tier logo, which is called eco-branding. That's the term for that. They want people to know that you're environmentally friendly, that you're doing all the right things as a business. Now, what is this being billed as? This is being billed as self-regulatory. It's not you're well to snort, because it's not self-regulatory at all, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but it's not at all self-regulation. And in fact, one of the things that you have to do as a business, as you're contracting to be in this program, is come up with your own penalties. You come up with your own penalties so that if you break the contract with the DNR, they have a way to punish you. And it's actually in your best interest to come up with those penalties, because if you don't, then all bets are off, and they can take all sorts of other measures against you, take you to court, whatever. You don't know what's going to happen to you at that point. At least if you establish your own penalties, you know what's going to happen to you. So then there's a second side, which is geared towards municipalities. And this is charter only. There is no Tier 1, Tier 2, particularly within the municipality side. The Green Tier charter that has been established for municipalities is called the Green Tier Charter for Legacy Communities. And there were 5 initial signatories on the municipal side to that charter. The city of Bayfield, the city of Appleton. Did you all know that Appleton is a Green Tier city? Also 2 in Dane County, Fitchburg and Middleton, and then the village of Weston in another part of the state. And here, again, you're getting little perks to be in the charter program. One is a single DNR point of contact that you're always dealing with, input from experts, and we're going to talk a little bit more about who those experts are in a minute, assistance applying for state and federal grants to implement these programs that they want you to implement. So they're going to be taking money from you and I, the taxpayers, in order to use it against us and limit our abilities to use resources, our freedoms, our property rights, all sorts of things. And then again, the use of the Green Tier logo. So it makes it really exciting for those cities to have an eco brand. Who have Wisconsin's Green Tier Charter, Green Tier champions been? First of all, Governor Tommy Thompson. The handout that I passed out as you were coming in is a regulatory reform working partnership. It's a memorandum of understanding between the state of Wisconsin and the German state of Bavaria. How many people in this room knew that there was a formal relationship between Wisconsin and the German state of Bavaria? Okay, very few hands here. This happened in 1998, and it was billed as an exchange of ideas between the two states. But in fact, that's not at all what it was. It was not an exchange. It was a teaching relationship with Bavaria in the teaching role. And this comes out of Agenda 21, these governments trying to advance these Agenda 21 initiatives. If you read the memorandum, which I would encourage you all to do at some point, I would encourage you to read it thoroughly. I would draw your attention to a couple of fine points here. One of which is at the very bottom, and I've highlighted it for you on page 1. It refers to environmental management systems. And that is something that we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, but you're going to see that all the way through Green Tier, particularly on the business side, but actually also on the municipal side. And then on the second page, I would like to draw your attention to the third bullet from the bottom, where it says one of the things that the parties are agreeing to is to work on a common international environmental law project in cooperation with the International Environmental Lawyers Network, or the IELN, and other competent partners. So this is not about our republic, gang. I don't think there's probably anyone in this room who's not interested in clean air, clean water, a beautiful environment. We all want that. But when these things are being when that honest desire to have a clean environment is being leveraged against citizens in order to rob them of their hard-earned dollars and their rights, that's a real problem. And that's what programs like Green Tier do. It is very deceptive. It is billed as heaven on earth, but it is designed to rob you of your money and your rights. And essentially help to establish an extra governmental system of governance. So that third bullet from the bottom on that second page is really important, because that's what this is all heading us towards, is international law. Okay, so Governor Tommy Thompson kicked this all off by signing this agreement, or this memorandum of understanding, with the German state of Bavaria. And then his DNR secretary at the time, George Meyer, took it the next steps. He actually started to develop this Green Tier idea. It was pioneered here in the state of Wisconsin by George Meyer and folks at the DNR. And then picked up by Senator Neil Kedzie, who is a Republican from the southeast corner of the state, and championed by him. He loves environmental causes, Neil Kedzie. And then Jim Doyle took it the next steps. And piloting organizations for this program, once it was developed, included the Sierra Club and Citizens for a Better Environment. So it was an environmentally geared program right from the beginning. So some landmark Green Tier dates. I'm just going to walk you through these as quickly as I can. In 1998, we have this formal agreement that's signed between Wisconsin and Bavaria. In 1999, big year, 1999, we have Wisconsin signing a regulatory innovation agreement with the EPA, which I would be willing to bet, though I have to do a little bit more research on this, has to do with the development of the Green Tier program, so that the EPA was giving them some leeway on how people in Wisconsin would be regulated because of the fact that there was going to be this innovation and how it was done. Then Green Tier concept developed and advanced by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Also, smart growth was signed into law in 1999. So all of these things are connected. You should not doubt that they are. 2000, DNR forms Green Tier Advisory Committee. In 2001, the Green Tier project was piloted and further developed. 2002, it established further pilot agreements with different companies and expanded in scope. It began to touch on many different topic areas or industrial areas, including agriculture. In 2003, there was a Green Tier bill introduced. It passed the state legislature. However, it was vetoed by Governor Doyle. Does anybody have any idea why it might have been vetoed by somebody who loves the environment and environmental causes as much as Governor Doyle?
Didn't go far enough?
Didn't go far enough. He didn't think it was strict enough. However, Senator Kedzie, who just absolutely adored this program, really worked to keep it alive and advance it. And he brought it back again with some friends in 2004, and they were able to pass a Green Tier law that had a sunset date on it. After that passed, the Robert M. La Follette School of Public Affairs at the University of Wisconsin began to push Green Tier as a Wisconsin IDEA initiative. Wisconsin IDEA, for those of you who have not heard of it before, is the concept that the university should be instrumental in advancing policy at the state level, and state and local level. And Green Tier was very much taken up as a cause by the University of Wisconsin through the Robert M. La Follette School of Public Affairs. I've actually read, I think, at least 3 papers now that were written by students at the Robert M. La Follette School, and all of them are quite disturbing. 2005, we had our first 2 Green Tier charters forged. And then ties between Green Tier and the EPA are deepened with a memorandum of agreement. So I think the EPA took a look at this Green Tier program and how it was starting to unfold, and they said, hey, yeah, maybe you've got something going there. 2007, a charter was signed with the Wisconsin Dairy Business Association. So they went right after our core, one of our core industries, and got them involved. And then in 2009, a law passed making Green Tier permanent. So they took the sunset out of it and made some other tweaks to it. So why green tier? Why would we need green tier? I mean, we've already got smart growth. That was already mandated in 1909 for crying out loud. And we've already got command and control regulation through the DNR and the EPA. Well, first of all, it's important to understand that green tier does not replace command and control regulation at all. That command and control regulation is still there. And really, this program has the same goals, including cap and trade. It simply adds new goals, strategies, and tactics and helps them to get at some things that they couldn't get at as easily before. One of the things that it does is it facilitates control over something called non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is something you can point to. Literally as simple as that. So if there's smoke coming out of a chimney at a factory, that's point source solution, or point source pollution, my goodness. And then if it's something a little bit more ambiguous that you can't necessarily address in a very simple way like that, for example, the exhaust from cars, because there are so many cars, or the amount of water that people are using, that sort of thing, or how water is being impacted, I should say, that's non-point source pollution. And this green tier program helps them get at non-point source pollution, or what they call non-point source pollution, and frankly at the public. So it gets away from simple command and control regulation of business and starts to move it in the direction of being able to control you and I. Green tier's underpinnings. First of all, it is based on the idea of sustainable development or shortage ecology. Those terms are almost interchangeable. Shortage ecology is the idea that there is a very limited amount of resources for everybody to use, and that if we're not very, very careful, and if we don't implement all of these regulations and policies, we're going to run out of resources. So that's what they root all of this on. And then it also has a new governance structure. And I was getting at this a little bit in the last slide. But all of the Robert M. La Follette papers refer to this new governance. It is a way of moving away from command and control, at least the look of command and control, and getting us towards new governance and away from actually standard representative government. And it takes a reflexive law approach. Now, what is reflexive law? Reflexive law functions almost like a feedback loop. So when you are, for example, if you are taking swimming lessons, and you've got somebody coaching you in your swimming, and they're giving you feedback on your performance, and they help you to see, okay, well, if you do this with your arm, you're going to be able to go a little bit faster, or you'll get a better stroke, or something along that. That's feedback, right? And you adjust your performance in the swimming pool based on the feedback that you get. Well, reflexive law works in a very similar way. It works on feedback that people are given, and it ratchets up performance based on the feedback that you're getting and then the additional performance that you are able to achieve. So that's a little bit how that works. And then it's also based on smart growth principles that underlies all of it, and the principles of an organization called the Coalition for Environmentally Responsible Economies, or CERES. CERES works to advance smart growth policies or green policies from the investor side of business. And they have very, very close ties to the UN. They have, as a matter of fact, thrown large seminars and other events for multinational corporations at the UN in order to get them on board with these green agendas. So there's a very close relationship there. And when I was doing my research on green tier, I ran across this bizarre slide presentation that was given when the new green tier logo was unveiled in 2008. They gave this presentation to stakeholders so that they would understand what the reasoning was behind this logo. And one of the things that I found in there was that the principles on which the program is based come from the Coalition of Environmentally Responsible Economies. I would encourage you can go to the DNR website and find a timeline for how Green Tier has unfolded. And this presentation is right in there in the timeline. I would encourage you to look at it. It's one of the most bizarre things you're ever going to see. And I'll let you discover it for yourself. But there's a wealth of information in there as well. Now, they make all of this sound like it's going to be glorious. It's a little bit like Hansel and Gretel, with the candy house and the gingerbread house with all the candy stuck on it. They want to make it enticing so that you'll walk in of your own free will. Unfortunately, once you walk in, you remember what happened to Hansel and Gretel? There was a cage on the inside of that house, and there was a big oven, and they were going to get cooked, those two little kids. So that's what you really need to understand, is no matter how wonderful they make it sound, it's not. Foundations of Green Tier, again, sustainable development or shortage ecology. And the set of circles on the left is a little diagram that sustainable advocates or sustainability advocates often use to convey what sustainable development is and how glorious it's going to make life. It uses three circles: environment, economy, and social equity. And it overlaps them in order to make life supposedly viable, equitable, and bearable. Except that when you do your research on all of this, what you discover is that environment is actually regulatory control, economy is actually crony capitalism, and social equity is actually redistribution of wealth, making life non-viable, inequitable, and unbearable. So, a little bit more about Green Tier for business. Again, it's billed as self-regulation, but is it really? Here's how you know it's not. From the state statutes, if you go to sections 299.83 and 299.85, that's primarily where Green Tier is located in the state statutes, although there are some other statutes that govern it. What you're going to find is that, again, you have to establish your own penalties as a business if you're going to be involved in this program. And if you don't live up to those, you can be penalized quite seriously or taken to court. So is that really self-regulation if the DNR still has all kinds of control over you about what you do and don't do? Not really. I would say instead, it's an iron fist. There's a great old Southern saying, the iron fist in a velvet glove. That's what this is. So also, it roots itself on environmental management systems, which are also mentioned in that lovely Memorandum of Understanding that was signed by Governor Thompson. Environmental management systems are basically a plan that a business has to develop, or a city, for example, about how they are going to approach and implement environmentally sound or sustainable practices within their organization or municipality. The concept was pioneered under the UN, and so again, here's another UN tie. Anybody who tries to tell you that Green Tier is not Agenda 21, you can tell them with absolute certainty it is. Also, it uses ISO 14000 standards. Now, ISO is something that most everybody knows at this point because it's used industrially across the globe in order to facilitate trade, et cetera. So it makes it easier for people to know, okay, well, the way that we're measuring things or the way that we are doing things is going to be the same somewhere else so that we can exchange or trade or whatever it is we need to do. ISO is quite a bit more strict, and while I don't have time to go into it today, it was adopted at the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio right along with Agenda 21. So there again is another tie, and Green Tier is governed by ISO 14000 standards. Green Tier for municipalities got underway a little bit later. But as I said, there is now this Green Tier Charter for legacy communities, and it started at the very tail end of Governor Doyle's term is when that first municipal charter was established. It's got a 5-year moratorium on it, or excuse me, not a moratorium, a deadline on it, and then it will almost certainly be renewed after that. Here are the stakeholders. The WDNR, 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin, who helped to shut down the mining possibility up north. The Center on Wisconsin Strategy, or COWS, which is Joel Rogers' organization. How many people in this room have heard of Joel Rogers, out of curiosity? Okay, there's a few. This is one of the most, his picture's right here. He's one of the most dangerous men in America, quite literally. He's a professor in several different departments at the University of Wisconsin, one of them being sociology. And he is actually one of the people who was principally involved in forging the Apollo Alliance, which was responsible for the national healthcare mandate. He is an absolutely tireless progressive. If you read his writings, you'll see him opining the fact that we no longer have models like the USSR and all sorts of other things like that. But he's been very good at keeping a low profile. Most people don't know who he is, but he's one of the most active progressive activists in the United States. And COWS is a signatory to the Green Tier Charter for Municipalities and has been very much an engine in driving this program. Also, the Municipal Environmental Group, the Wisconsin Energy Conservation Corporation, which is a consulting business that works on environmental issues, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Somebody actually just showed me the publication of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities for the first time last night, and I was appalled. There was actually an article about Green Tier in there, but the whole thing is riddled with smart growth principles, and these people are on the Agenda 21 bandwagon, hook, line, and sinker. So, and then the municipalities, again, the five that established the charter, or that were initial signatories to it, Appleton, Bayfield, Fitchburg, Middleton, and Weston. And then just this past Monday, Monona voted unanimously to become a part of the charter. We tried to stop that one and could not. It provides accountability for municipalities. Now, this is what I'm getting at when I say that it helps to undermine, this part of the program helps to undermine our representative style of government. Who should municipal elected officials be accountable to? Citizens. Is there anybody else that they should be accountable to? No. However, when a municipality signs onto this charter, they then become accountable to the other signatories of the charter. And who are the signatories of the charter again? That's who they're accountable to now. So it's really important to remember that. Now, they will try and tell you that they're not, it's not really accountable, it's just self-accountability, but the reality is this is a legal document. The charter is a legal document which is governed by state statutes. Why would you need a legal document if you weren't going to be held accountable to it? I would ask you that. And then it establishes a baseline for communities using something called Appendix 3 of the Charter. And again, if you go on the DNR's website and you look, you will very quickly find not just the charter, but Appendix 3, which is a long checklist of items that they want municipalities working towards to be at what they call baseline. And then a Green Tier is going to help them mount even more environmental standards and initiatives and policies on top of that baseline. There's a cost to individual rights. With most of the things that are on that list, there is a cost to property rights and values, and there's also a cost to business. Here are some examples of Green Tier action items. This is just a very small snippet. This is a 3-page list, friends, and that's, again, just the baseline. Require large employers seeking rezoning to provide subsidized transit. Or to reduce transportation demand management plan by 20% over business as usual. Well, if businesses can't transport what they need to transport, or whatever it is they need to do with their vehicles on a regular basis, how are they going to continue to function? I mean, have they asked businesses? They never ask anybody about passing this charter. They just, they have sustainability committees in most of these municipalities. The municipality, or the sustainability committee decides this is a good idea. They take it to the city council, and the city council passes it. And there's no consultation of the public whatsoever. In Monona, if we had not been there the night that this was going to be passed, there was not a single Monona citizen in the room. There were 9 people from my group, 2 of whom were Monona citizens, and that was it. They expected this to pass with no problem. Also, eliminate parking minimums in non-residential districts. What's that going to accomplish? Fewer cars, right? They're trying to make this as car unfriendly as possible. Charge impact fees for new roads. And the numbers that you're seeing are all point values. So you gain points as a city for implementing these policies, right? Provide transit passes at 50% discount or greater, and provide parking cash out options for public employees. Adopt residential conservation ordinance. You know where that goes because you've already heard me talk about where we're headed in Madison. Plan for replacing all toilets using greater than 1.6 gallons per flush, with plans to replace 90% in 10 years. Pay-as-you-throw system implemented by municipality required of waste haulers. That's metering of your trash. That's what that is. Zoning code includes mixed-use districts, which has a tremendous impact on land values, which they will tell you is wonderful, except that if you do some digging into mixed-use zoning and what it does to property values, I think you're going to find that it causes more problems than it solves. Getting close to the end here. Okay, so some quick Green Tier current events, and then I'm going to sit down or I should, I guess, take a few questions. Executive Order 69 was just signed on May 23rd here in the state of Wisconsin, and it ramps up the business side of Green Tier. And that's tragic, my friends, because we have a governor who's done some wonderful, wonderful things and has been very responsive to the needs of the state in terms of being more fiscally responsible, and now is taking a really strong stand on healthcare as well. I don't know if you've been watching what he's been saying in the news about the state of Wisconsin and healthcare, but he has a real backbone now about what we are going to do and not going to do here. But he did just sign Executive Order 69, which ramps up the business side of Green Tier. And so we really do need to help educate our governor about what this is and try and get this rolled back. In the city of Monona, as I said, we've just lost that battle. Monona is now fully on board the Green Tier Charter. City of Janesville, we're having a little bit more luck. We have some very, very organized folks down in the Janesville area who have been working to educate their city council, working to educate the public, and who have gotten really good turnouts at these city council meetings. And right now we have it staved off. One of the thing that they are actually staved off on is, or that makes them want to hesitate a little bit, is that there is no language in either the state statutes or in the charter itself, which guarantees that if you pull out of this charter as a municipality, there will not be any penalties leveled at you. Now, that's not to say that there will be. There might not be, but there's no legal language to protect a municipality against penalties. So that has some of the city council members in Janesville a little bit concerned. Public perception of Green Tier. Unfortunately, we have a real problem on our hands because so many inroads have already been made in relationship to sustainable development. It's the marketing that has gone into this, into making it sound good, and making people want to get on board with these sustainable development initiatives is significant. And it's almost become a part of everybody's thinking now. So to get people to think about this differently is a challenge. Also, because of this executive order that was just signed by the governor, and because of how beloved our governor now is, not just in Wisconsin, but across the nation, I already have lots of people pushing back at me when I talk about this subject and saying, no, that's not Agenda 21. Green Tier is not Agenda 21, because the governor doesn't think it is, and the governor thinks it's safe and wonderful. So we have a real problem on our hands with public perception of Green Tier at this point. In terms of reversing Green Tier, there are a few things that we need to do. First of all, again, educating the public and our elected officials is top priority. We also have to know our audience when we talk. Many of you probably already understand that when you talk to an elected official, it may be different talking to him than it is talking to a business owner. Different people need to hear different things to be persuaded. So always we need to know our audience and be able to communicate effectively with our audience in a way that they will be able to absorb the information and do something about it. We need to speak truth, we need to expose lies, and we need to start dominating language. This is something that the left has done very effectively for a long time, is they've dominated language. language. Sustainable development is a perfect example. We've been made to feel as though it's the most wonderful thing in the world to care for our environment, and if we aren't getting on board with sustainable development initiatives, we don't care about our environment. The term sounds responsible and noble and wonderful. It's only when we begin to expose how this language is being used against people that we're going to start really winning the battle. Also, we need to personalize the issue. Again, this is a trick that the left has been using for a very long time now. Everything that they've gotten, they have put a personal face on. If it's mortgages, if it's health care, if it's housing of some other kind, they have people, it's Nellie in St. Louis, Missouri, who can't afford to pay her mortgage, and she's got 5 kids, and oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We have to pass some sort of public program in order to help her. They've personalized the issue. We have to start doing the same thing. This has been very effective with our elected representatives, because when you show elected representatives enough of these poor people, these personal stories, it becomes very, very difficult for them to say, no, I'm not going to do anything about that, I don't care, because they look like cold, hard, unfeeling people. We have to do the same thing. We have to start showing people at the Capitol how, and in our municipalities and counties, how these policies are affecting people negatively. We need to put personal faces on that, and we need to push those stories out. And then also we need to keep our cool, which is not an easy thing to do. It is very easy to get passionate and to want to get overexcited when we're talking to people, and then to lose credibility because we have not kept our cool. If we keep our cool, and if we let the opposition to these things be the ones that blow their stack, that's a much better thing for us. So I would encourage you to just always, when you're in conversation with somebody, whether it's an elected official or whoever, just step back and take some time, take a breath, and make sure that you're keeping your logic and your cool. And with that, I'll take a couple of questions. Thank you.